Well, welcome everybody and people who are about to tune in. So we just want to start by acknowledging the country that we're on. For me, that's Bundjalung country, up in the hills of northern New South Wales, and acknowledging the leaders past, present and emerging, and just acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded over this land in particular and all the lands that we gather on today, wherever you are in Australia and other countries. So Four Wild Places is an activist running group that seek to protect wild places that we care about through running, through engagement with people and planet. We organise these trail chats every month with a special guest, and we've had some pretty special ones. Today's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to talking to Phil. So we obviously talk about trail running. We talk a little bit about activism, but also life, because those things become pretty deeply intertwined, as we all know. So our guest today is Phil Gore, Australia's backyard ultra marathon champion, but also the world record holder, which just is incredible, and such a feather in the cap of Australia, but also obviously for Phil. So this is going to be really interesting and fun. Phil started running by just doing 5K parkruns, which is pretty inspirational when we think about where you can come from as a runner and end up doing insane things. He's obviously graduated to longer endurance events over time, and now is the world record holder, running 683 kilometers over 102 hours in the Dead Cow Gully Endurance event, which is just an incredible mental and physical achievement, and super exciting to talk about. So if we can start, Phil, where are you coming from talking to us today, right now, where are you sitting in the world?
Yeah, so I'm in WA, so I live about 40 minutes outside of Perth, in the southeast corner. So yeah, on the outskirts, and yeah, pretty close to the Wollongong Regional Park here, which has got some great trails.
Yeah, awesome. And just before we came on, you were saying that you're about a K from those?
Yeah, so pretty much step out my back door and it's just over a K to get to the hills. And then I've got, kilometers and kilometers of trails in there to run on. And even today, like I've been living here about probably 8 or 9 years, and I still find new trails when I go out there occasionally. So it's a very, very vast area with lots of sort of hidden tracks.
Yeah, sick. That sounds like heaven.
Mm.
So look, let's kick off in a really obvious place. Dead Cow Gully. What is it? Your first backyard ultra? How did it come about that you chose this one? What was the story there?
Oh, I'll get it for you, mate. It's in the fridge.
Yeah, definitely not my first backyard. This was my 9th one. So yeah, I think I'd be pretty surprised if I entered my first backyard and went and ran a world record. It's taken me a bit of practice and experience to get to that point. But yeah, so the Dead Cow Gully, or the Australian Backyard Masters as it's known. This was a new event for this year that Tim put onto the calendar. And the idea was to just try and get all your top runners from around Australia and international runners as well. So we had a few from New Zealand and we had Harvey Lewis from the USA, and just with the idea of, getting all these elite runners together, giving the event that opportunity to be able to go a really long distance. Because with a backyard, ultimately the end distance is decided by your top 2 runners. So as soon as that second last runner dropped out, the last runner can only do one more lap. So yeah, if you get all your top runners together, you've got better chance of it lasting a lot longer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Hey, Will, I just ask if you can mute everyone, just click the top corners of their picture. You should be able to mute them as the host. Sorry, Phil.
Yeah, no dramas.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it's your ninth. What was different for you? Obviously, looking at as within that in mind of having all the elite runners there, having whoever gets through this has a potential to really make a record. Was that what was in your head to start with, that you were going to try and break that record, or was there a few of you there in the same spot and you were going to see how it panned out on the day? What was the?
Yeah, so like I didn't go there with the intention of breaking the world record, but I did know that it would be a possibility. So like I never set myself goals for these events, or not time or distance based goals at least. Yeah, I just I kind of my plan, it went up to 143 hours, and that was just simply because I thought that was just a completely absurd sort of number to get to, and I didn't want to have my plan end prematurely. So yeah, like I mean, Harvey Lewis he'd done 85 before. He was the former world record holder. He's the US record holder. So just knowing that he was going to be there before the event had even started, my mindset is in that place that, this isn't going to be one that I can just go and run 50 hours and easily win. It's going to be going on a lot longer than that, probably looking at double what my usual backyard has sort of been. So yeah, I think that I was really quite excited at that possibility about really going that far. But yeah, just also the not knowing of exactly how far it would go. And it wasn't even really until we got to those sort of last few laps right before the world record that I started really thinking about, this is it, we're gonna do this.
What was that moment like? Like, you've been in the pain cave at least a few times in that period, right? And now you're setting a goal at the late stage of the run. Like, what was that process like for you?
Well, it's weird. You say like getting the pain cave. Like, yes, I get like aches and fatigue and all that, but I never really found myself in that situation where I was just really physically struggling and in a lot of pain. It was like I definitely had a few moments where mentally I kind of got into a dark place, and I had to dig myself out of that. And to the credit of my crew, they really helped get me out of that spot. Yeah, there were sort of little niggles and aches and pains, which with massaging and stuff like that, I kind of got out of. But I wouldn't really say I got into the pain cave, so to say. Sorry?
Made for it, man. That's pretty incredible. So what was the process for you setting a goal like that late stage, going, okay, I've been running for a couple of days now, and now I'm going to set a target to keep going, and it's possible to break this record. What were your conversations like in those final laps?
Well, I still at that point didn't set it as a goal. It was still like, I came to the realization that we was going to get there, but in my head I was like, well, if Sam is going to keep going, then I'm just going to keep going as well. And I'm still, I'm looking forward to getting this world record, but I'm also looking ahead in case it's going to go further than that. But in those last, the last 3 laps, Sam really started to struggle. He was having breathing difficulties. He was complaining about an issue with his hamstring. And I kind of got the feeling that it was going to wrap up. And I knew he wanted to hang on to get to the record. So if I knew if he could at least get to 101, which was the current world record, then I could go and do 102 and break it. But yeah, you still kind of, even though he's looking in that like he's struggling and in that situation, you still kind of, it's not over till it's over. So anything can sort of happen. Or I could have had something happen to me that made me drop out, or he could have started to improve. But yeah, you just never know. So like I always say, like you just kind of focus on the present moment and taking it lap by lap, and then the milestones will sort of come to you. So you just got to stay in the game for as long as possible, and if you can keep doing that, then eventually you'll get to that world record and beyond.
So how much does the course, like, how much did the course play into your kind of strategy and planning and thinking about it? Or was it something else that you think I want a lap to lap basis?
So basically I have everything planned out. Every hour I've got what I'm going to eat, what the pace is going to be, you know, if I'm going to sleep or not, if I'm going to have a shower, if I need to put on sunscreen. So when I go into the race and I've got it planned out for that, you know, 140 plus hours, I have the mindset that I could be there that long. But ultimately when I'm in the run, I'm just thinking about, okay, this lap, what pace do I need to run it at? When I get back, what am I going to eat? You know, what's the plan for the break? So I'm not overwhelming myself with that big distance. So when I get to that start line, I'm not thinking, oh, Jesus, I've got 400 miles of running ahead of me. I'm just thinking I just got to run 6.7 Ks. And I go and I do that lap and I do it how it is on my plan. And yeah, come back in and do what I need to do in the break. And then I'm looking at what I need to do for the next lap. And yeah, so I'm really only ever thinking a few laps ahead. But with the understanding that I'm still going to be there a while. Like I'm not just thinking I only need to get through this lap. Because then it's like I'll get to the end of that lap and it's like, oh, now I've got to do it again. It's kind of like I focus on each lap at a time, but with the understanding that, you know, I'm going to be doing that for quite a while.
So with it being your ninth dig at a backyard ultra, obviously that planning process of 140 plus hours, that's quite a lot of effort that goes into that and quite a lot of thinking. How has that evolved for you over time from, you know, maybe your first to where we're sitting now, where you're looking at being arguably the best person in the world at it? So how's that evolved for you, and how much of that actually went to plan?
Yeah, so it's definitely been refined over the different backyards that I've done. So my first one, there was no plan at all. I was sort of the night before, just before I went to bed, I got out a pen and paper and I was sort of writing down what sort of paces should I be looking at running, like should I have a run walk strategy, and you know, I had a lot of food with me, but it was just a random assortment, and I kind of had no structure of when I was going to eat it or how much I was going to eat. It was just like, you know, when I get hungry, I'll eat. You know, if my feet get sore, I'll, you know, look at changing my shoes and things like that. But there was no sort of structure to it. And then, yeah, coming from that one into my next one, I'm like, I really want to like improve on my previous performances. So it was just looking at where I could, you know, make little differences, and just having a plan and some sort of structure was an obvious thing for me. And yeah, so my plan went from like that, the next backyard I did. So my first one I did 39 hours. Then the next one I did, you know, I was kind of looking at sort of some targets and milestones I could be reaching. So the Australian record at the time was, I think it was 46. It was 44 or 46. So I had that on my plan as a milestone, but not as like an end goal. And I thought, you know, that's not. Sorry?
You might have kicked that one.
Yeah, I've definitely beaten that. So yeah, knowing that I'd done 39 before, you know, going to 46 seemed like it was not too far out of reach. But then I kind of looked beyond that as well, and I put down at the time the world record was 75, so I put that down on my plan. And then that kind of took me 3 lines onto the next page of my plan. And like, I might as well just fill this page up. And I went to 96. And I was like, yeah, 96. That's like, you know, double more than what I've done before. You know, that's well beyond I ever expect to do. But yeah, ended up getting 48 at that event, which yeah, was a new Australian record. And yeah, so each time since then, I've kind of fine-tuned my plan a little bit more and add a few more hours onto it each time. And so yeah, so the one I've just done, it kind of was at that 140 mark, and it's always kind of been about double what my PB is. So my PB coming into this event was 76, so it was probably just a bit less than double. But yeah, it's always about, you know, going well beyond where you think you can go, because, you know, if I'd put down on my plan, 102, that's still, 24 hours and a bit above what my PB was. But yeah, I don't want to get to that point and then be like, it's kind of gives me an excuse in my mind to just sort of stop, because it's like, well, you've got to the end of the plan, like you've done what you set out to do. And also not having that food prepared for it, and having a plan of what I'm going to do, I'd find it a bit harder mentally as well.
So that's a really great point you're pulling on there. So excuses, they're the thing, right? We all make all those excuses when we're at any point in some runs. We can be running 5Ks in the rain and not want to finish it. Like, how do you limit that, and how do you cope with it in a scenario where you're out for 100 hours?
Yeah, so like I see it a lot where people will set themselves goals. Like it might be they want to do 100Ks, or they want to do 50 miles, or 100 miles, 36 hours, whatever it is. They'll set this goal, and they might be like, I want to get to 24 hours, but I'll hang on and I'll keep going as long as I can after that. But then when they get to 24 hours, they're like, you know what, I've set out what I said I wanted to do. So, I'll give myself that out. And it's just easy for them to stop in the moment. But they might look back on it, the next day or down the track when they're recovered, and they're like, you know what, I did have a bit more in the tank. I should have kept going. So that's why I say I don't set myself goals. I don't set myself time or distance-based goals. My goal going into these events is to stay in the event for as long as possible. So I'm always in there running those laps with the idea in my mind that there's going to be a lot more of them to come. It doesn't matter if I'm at lap 1, lap 24, lap 100. I'm still running those laps with the idea that I could still be there a long time. Mm-hmm. And so if I get to a point where I feel like I want to drop out, or I'm just in that dark place mentally, I don't have a way to give myself an excuse to quit, because my goal is there to be in there for as long as possible. So if I'm in that really dark spot and all I want to do is quit, if I can just do one more lap, then that's staying in the event for longer. And then I get to the end of that lap, and then I'll be like, okay, let's go do another lap. And if I keep trying to stay in the event for as long as possible, that can help me get through those dark times and come out the other side. And then I might be able to dig myself out of that hole and start looking ahead again and thinking, I feel good for another 24 hours or something like that.
Yeah, cool. How much did the other runners obviously it always ends in 2, but
yeah,
how did that process go for you? Was that something you leaned on, or are you kind of sitting out there just making sure you're in your own zone, or how does that play out for you personally?
Yeah, so the first couple of days, there's still quite a few people around, especially the first day. So the event started with just over 50 runners, and every lap I was out there, I was having such a great time, just talking to other runners, getting to know new people, and it really helps pass the time and just makes you enjoy the event. And you're not really thinking about the task at hand. You're just thinking about talking to people, and you're sharing in that experience together, and you're out in a great part of the country, and experiencing the trail, and you just have moments that's just you're looking around, and it might be there's wallabies jumping in front of you, or there's cows that are coming along and all curious about what's happening. And so yeah, it's just a really enjoyable time. But sort of as people start dropping out and you get into the later stages of the race, there's less people around to talk to, but I'm also probably more focused at the task at hand. And as I said, I've got that plan, and each hour I know what sort of pace I'm going to run at. And a lot of the times that pace doesn't match up with anyone else who's still in the event. So like particularly on the night laps, I like to do my night laps fast so I can get more sleep during the break. And for me, that means I'm running out there on my own. So whereas other people will prefer to run in a group and stay together, because getting through that night is probably the toughest part of the event. But if you've got a group there supporting you and helping you get through it together, they can get through that as a team. But yeah, I think I can work quite well on my own. Like I do like to run in a group, but I can also work well on my own. So if my plan says I've got to go out and run a 38-minute lap, then I'll go out and run ahead on my own and do what I need to do for my for my goals and my plan.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And that's the thing, like you're making sure you're living your truth rather than someone else's. So you're working your plan. Is that sleep piece something that you've refined over time? Like, is that something you kind of went, actually, when I sleep more, that's better. So this is the strategy I'm going to use to get to more sleep?
Yeah. So the first backyard I didn't sleep at all. There was one lap where I tried to sleep, but it just didn't work. And yeah, because I knew I knew I could probably get through 24 hours without any sleep. And I was just like, I'll get through that 24 hours and then I'll just, sort of hang on for as long as possible. And I think by the end of it, the sleep deprivation and fatigue really did play a role in me not being able to continue past that 39. And then so going into the next event, I was just like, well, this sleep strategy, this is something I want to try and work on and see if I can incorporate. And yeah, so just trying to get those faster laps in so I could have more time to sleep. It might mean I'm getting 15 minutes instead of 10 minutes. And, it sort of every little bit helps. And I wasn't particularly great with it at my at my second backyard where I started incorporating this sleep. A lot of the times, I'd lie down and close my eyes and I wouldn't sleep at all. But like I still knew, could hear everything going on around me and, I'd get distracted and, you still got that adrenaline and stuff going through. But for me, it was just about getting in that habit of coming in, lying down, closing my eyes. And I found that even if I didn't sleep, just that process of lying down and closing my eyes and trying to shut off really helped me get through. But yeah, over the years, I think I've gotten better at just being able to switch off really quickly. I've gotten into meditation. So when I come into sleep, I'll just start meditating and I'll just meditate until I fall asleep. And then if I don't fall asleep, then at least I'm meditating that whole time. And the other thing I found that really works as well is having noise cancelling headphones. So I put those in and it just helps tune out everything else around me. The only downside of that is sometimes it tunes it out too much and you can't hear, if that lap's meant to be starting or things like that. So you kind of like sometimes I'll lie there and I, might get a bit panicky, like, have I missed the start? But then ultimately that just comes back to trust in my crew that they're not going to fall asleep and that they're going to wake me up. And, sometimes I'll even like, I've done events where like we're in a caravan and, they were walking around in the caravan and, I really like that because I still couldn't hear anything, but just the subtle movements of the caravan let me know that they were there and that they were awake. Yeah. But whereas when they, in the beginning, they tried not to move or talk or anything because I didn't want to move it around, and they'd even wait outside just not to disturb me. And I had to tell them, no, it's better if you're in here and just walking around a little bit because then I know that you're there and I can, my mind's a lot more at ease and I can rest easier.
Yeah, right. That's a pretty powerful learning. That's I can relate to why that'll work too, because those moments of waking up and going, oh, I'm late. That's a killer, right?
Yeah.
It can be one.
Yeah, I mean, there was one lap at the Dead Cow Gully where I just got into such a deep sleep. It felt like I'd been asleep for hours, and I was just like, I've missed the start here, and even like I've missed the start of like 2 or 3 laps, and I just sat like bolt upright. I'm like, what time is it? What time is it? And they're just like, relax, you've still got about a minute. And yeah, I'd literally just woken up a minute before the alarm was set to go off. Perfect. And yeah, just thinking I'd completely like missed the start of the lap and I was out of the race.
That's pretty good quality sleep though, if you're getting that depth.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a huge improvement like over that period. So what do you think the biggest kind of learning you've taken away from this one has been for you? Like refining your process or thinking about your training differently? What's the thing that you pulled out of this one?
Yeah, so I definitely realized like with my plan, so the backyard I did before this was Hurdy's, and my plan was very similar. Like I didn't change much at all. So at Hurdy's, I got to 57 hours. The plan had worked really well, but I just hadn't really had the opportunity to test it beyond that 57 hours because obviously I was left as the last one standing and I couldn't go anymore. But I'd really thought at that point that plan had worked perfectly. So this one gave me the chance to, use the exact same plan, but do it over that longer period. And I was just really, it was great to learn that even in that, I'm doing another, 40 odd hours on top of that, just following that plan, it still really worked. And there wasn't really much that I needed to change from doing Herdy. So I think I've got to the point now where my plan is pretty good, and I'm really happy with where it's at. And the same with all of my training and everything else that I've done leading into it. Like this kind of like getting to that 102 hours and still feeling like I could keep going. It's really just the confirmation of everything that I've been doing. It's all the right stuff. It's all going in the right direction, and I'm doing the right things. Whereas if I think back to my previous best, which was 76, when I was at 76 hours, that was like the worst that I've ever felt in any backyard. Like I'd probably struggled for about 10 or 11 hours. I'd been struggling and just literally thinking, I don't know if I can get through this lap, but if I get through this one, then I'll start the next one. And I'd somehow fumbled my way through and was able to hang on to the win. And I think a lot of that was kind of luck as well, but it definitely wasn't because I was, it definitely wasn't because everything kind of went right. It was a lot of stuff went wrong, and I just managed to hang on. I just from that I had a lot of learnings, and changed some stuff around with my nutrition and with my sleep strategies and stuff like that.
What did you change with your food?
So a big thing was sodium. So I started introducing salt tablets. And so this was, I think there was definitely an electrolyte imbalance there, because I was just getting not quite hallucinations, but I was getting really impaired cognitive function. I was getting like cramps and stuff in my muscles. And a lot of that, I think, was to do with that electrolyte imbalance. There's also just, a lot of the food I'd have on the plan, and I might just only eat half of it. Like I'd have the whole thing prepared, but I'd only end up eating half. Whereas, with the events I've done since then, so Herdy's and Dead Cow Gully, most of the time I am eating everything, and even sometimes having a little bit more. So I'm definitely getting more calories in, and I'm getting those salts and stuff.
How many calories are you eating a lap then? If you're getting through all of it, that's an effort.
I don't know exactly. I have a nutritionist that I work with, so Gabby at Intense Eat Fit, and pretty much I write up my plan based on, these are the paces that I'm going to run, and this is when I'm going to sleep, and this is where I want to eat. Send her the plan, and she knows what sort of foods I like and what works well with me, and she'll go and then fill out the table with, the food that I need to eat, and their serving sizes and stuff like that. So she does all the back of house stuff, working out exactly how many calories and how much sodium, and all of that. But for me, I don't look at any of that. I just look at, okay, that's the food I need to eat for that lap. So, and then if something changes, like I don't eat something, it's just a quick message to her. Like my crew will message her and just sort of let her know how the plan's tracking, and she might suggest some alternatives or something that I need to change about the plan as we go.
Okay. What's your favorite? What's your staple for when you're really feeling it?
Probably one of the popular foods that I like is rice cream, or like the little rice pudding cups. So that's really good. Like I think anything rice based are sort of good for those carbs. And it's just, it's that sweetness, but it's not that really overly sweet stuff like when you're having lollies and stuff like that. And it's just really easy to eat as well, because anything that's sort of mushy and, doesn't require a lot of chewing, those sort of foods are great. So that's probably one of my favorites. And that's what I've had. I've used that sort of stuff from my very first backyard. It's just been something I found really good, and it doesn't matter. Like a lot of the time I come in and I might have something on my plan. I'm like, I'm not sure if I quite feel like eating that, but when that rice pudding is there, it's like, yeah, cool, I can eat that.
You know how many you did in the Dead Cow?
I think there's about 2 a day. So probably would have been Yeah, it's 1 or 2 a day, so it would have been between 4 and 8. So
Yeah. Cool. Man, that's a lot of pieces to put together, and it sounds like that plan's really been a big piece of your, not just your mental game, but also the physical piece. How did your training compare, your actual time on feet prior to the event compare to what you've done previously? Was it a similar thing, or was it like, how did you manage that?
Well, probably like leading into my first backyard, probably my biggest week would have been about 100 Ks. And I thought anything more than that is just junk miles, and you don't really need to do those Ks. And I was quite happy doing 100 Ks a week. But my plan now, um, like 80 Ks is probably my minimum. And
Yep.
on my peak weeks, I'll be doing about 160 to 180. So,
Pretty
and
good.
I do that on kind of a cycle as well. So I'm not doing like 180 Ks every week. There might be like 2 weeks in a row where it's like 160, then 180, then I'm dropping it back down. So yeah, I kind of just work on that cycle, and it's all about slowly building up the Ks over the weeks, and then just dropping it back down, and not just suddenly going from 80 Ks to 180. I've got that build there, and I think that just helps with like warding off injury and stuff like that. And I'm not pushing my body a lot further than what it can go at that point.
Yeah. What kind of vert are you doing in those, or it's not relevant to you, or?
Oh, I definitely try to include a bit of vert in there. Probably try to get about a minimum of 1,000, and it could go up to 2,000 or over 2,000. But yeah, so on average, it's probably between 1,000 and 1,500.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's interesting. So it's funny thinking about all the places around Australia that are on the coast where that vert's actually really hard to get to when you're not doing really high Ks. And then you go to
Yeah,
other places where you're at the bottom of the hills and it's like 700 a run. It's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Well, there's one hill near my place where I can just go up and down it. It's on a road, but it's just super steep. And I think I ended up doing about 1,000 meters of elevation within about 16 Ks or something. So, and that was just going up and down the same hill. So it's that elevation is definitely easy to find around where I am. And yeah, I always try to get into the trails about at least 2 times a week, sometimes 3 times. And yeah, if I just get like 2 runs in the trails, that's already over 1,000. So
What's your preference? Like, do you like training on roads? Do you like training fire trails? Do you like trails?
uh
A lot of Ks and a
I
lot of options there.
yeah, it depends. Like I come from a road running background, especially like in my early days doing a lot of park runs and marathons and stuff like that. So I like going out on the road, and I can just like tune out and just sort of run at a consistent pace, and I can do like really long Ks without without having the trouble of all the vert and all that. But then yeah, I definitely do like getting out in the trails as well, and just having that nature and those surrounds, and really challenging myself on those hills. So yeah, I'm kind of like, I like a bit of both, and it might depend on my mood on the day of what I prefer to do. But yeah, when I write my plan, I'll write on there if I'm going to be doing a road or a trail, and I'll try to make sure I get that variety.
Yeah, cool. So again, we go back to planning and really structured. So you're not thinking about it, you're just doing it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
All right. Yeah, cool.
yeah.
So what's your recovery been like? I mean, you've run most of the way from Sydney to Brisbane. What's the recovery been like for you? Is it different? It's like, have you noticed changes from different shoe choices this time or anything? Like, what's the process look like?
Yeah. So yeah, recovery is definitely an area I need to improve on. So I'm always really focused on my training. Like I'm really structured with that. And the event, I'm really structured with that. And I put a lot of energy into getting the training and the build up right, and the race right. But then when it comes to recovery, that's always like a bit of an afterthought. So I know it's an area I need to put improvement on, but it's always like I'll just do whatever I can to get there and to do the event and to do it really well. And it doesn't matter what happens after that. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm thinking about more now. And especially doing a lot more of these events each year, it's something that I do need to work on. but yeah, with this event, so I've kind of got a bit of a break before my next big one. So that's mid-October. So that's the world champ. So I don't need to rush my recovery. You know, I had a week off of running. I'm normally someone who's out there running every single day. You know, I couldn't run the next day after the event. I was just too sore. And because I'd had that day off, it's like, well, I've broken my run streak now. So let's just actually take the time to recover properly. You know, I had a week off of running, had a few physio appointments, and then I was out there again. And, you know, I've been out there every day since I started running again, but it's only, you know, that short sort of, you know, 7Ks, 10Ks, like no huge Ks yet. But, you know, within the next week or two, I'll start looking at my training plan leading into bigs, and I'll start ramping those Ks up.
Yeah, cool. Are you feeling like, I know personally, like if I don't get enough Ks in, I can really tell with my mind and everything else kind of changes. How's that going for you, going from, you know, significant mileage in a week to lower? Has that been challenging for you mentally at all?
No, I actually find it good in a way. Yeah, not having to, you know, when I gave myself that sort of week break, it's kind of just like a bit of a relief, and it's just a time to rest, and I can, you know, just lounge around the house. I'm not feeling guilty that I haven't got out for a run. It's like, you know, I've kind of earned this break. So mentally, I find it really easy. And then yeah, just when I'm starting my running again, and you know, just doing those small volume of Ks, you know, I'm really happy that I'm getting out there and doing it, but I'm not feeling the need to have to go, you know, more than 10 or 15 Ks. So I just really try to just embrace that and enjoy that sort of time where, yeah, I don't have to go out and do those big Ks, and I don't have to go out and do those interval sessions, and I can just run for the joy of running, as opposed to running to, you know, to train for a particular thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's nice to get back to that too. When we set ourselves these goals and then we come down from them, and actually remembering why we started running in the first place is a nice place to be in.
Yeah.
They haven't lost the love for it, even over 102 hours.
No. Well, there are definitely times during that backyard I was like, why am I going over to do this again in America? And I'm probably going to be running even further. Like, you know, I need to stop doing these runs. They're just getting too ridiculously long now. Like, it's all right to do like a few of these each year when you're only running 40 or 50 hours, but you know, 100 hours, that's a different ball game.
Yeah, it's a long time. I mean, you've mentioned this already. You don't have a plan for a goal for exactly what you're going to do, but how many pages are in the book for America? Have we added another page, or are we going to test it?
I think I will have to, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll pretty much, yeah, I'll use the same plan, or at least very similar. I might make a few changes to it. But yeah, I'll probably have to extend that out a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's exciting. That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
So, what's been the biggest change you've seen? I mean, it's been a long time, but what's the change you've seen in yourself and in your approach to running, from obviously parkrun, where a lot of runners start, to marathons, to doing things that other people think are insane? What's been the process there for you? Has it just been a natural progression, or like you saw Berkeley and decided that was your life's calling? Like what's happened?
Yeah, it's definitely been just like a very, very progressive sort of thing. Like there was never a point, like when I was running park runs, like, or when I first started running park runs, you know, I'd see people like mates of mine that would go out and run 100-mile races or 24-hour races, and I'm just like, why are you doing that for? That's, you know, that's not something I'd ever want to do. It's like, you know, maybe I'll do a marathon, but I'm not going to do anything more than that. I've got no interest in it. And it's just something I kind of fell into. Like my very first, my first really long ultra, like I'd done a few around 47 Ks, but I didn't really count those as an ultra because they're, you know, just a little bit longer than a marathon. But the first proper long one I did was a 12-hour, and that was only because I got free entry. And because I had free entry, it's like, well, I might as well go for the longest one. So there was like a 3-hour, 6-hour, and 12-hour. And I'm like, I'll just go for the most expensive one and, you know, get my free entries worth. And yeah, that was probably the point that I discovered I had a bit of a talent for it.
Yep.
But at the same time, I wasn't really hooked on it. I wasn't like finishing that and thinking, oh, when's the next really long marathon I can do, or ultra marathon I can do. But then we kind of had COVID around that time anyway, and there wasn't a lot of events on, and the first one back after COVID was Birdie's Backyard, and yeah, that's just where I kind of developed the love for that format, and I've just kind of, you know, just wanted to get better at it ever since. So
Yeah, sick. It's pretty cool to. That's an interesting theme. Like, it's not a goal. It's, oh, let's do this. Let's see. And that
yeah.
seems to be here. So awesome story. You mentioned something just then that everyone kind of has a different answer to. Your why to keep going. Is there a continual why? Is it that you love being in nature? Is it that you just want to test yourself? Like, is there a common conversation that goes through your head in those moments?
Well, initially when I first started, when I first got back into running, it was just about staying fit, you know, setting a good example for my family, you know, just for health reasons and, you know, longevity in life and stuff like that. But, you know, as I started doing it more and more, I just really discovered that this is something that I'm good at, and especially getting to these longer distances and, you know, being, you know, in that top category in Australia and now the world, it's like I've discovered that thing that I'm really good at, and it's something that I'm passionate about as well. Like, I love talking about it. I love running with other people, and sharing that joy of running with them.
Awesome.
And I just think if you find that thing that you're passionate about, if you find that thing that you're really good at, you know, then you can just, you know, just dedicate all your energy to it and just really embrace that and just see how far you can go with it.
Yeah, wicked. It's a special thing we get to share. Hey, we might, if there's anyone who's watching that's got a couple of questions, we've got about 17 minutes left. Does anyone have anything they would like to ask Phil at this pivotal moment? You'll have to unmute yourselves too, obviously, that old thing. All right, I'm going to keep kicking it because no one's jumping up and down yet. So for me, like, one of the interesting things, we always like to talk about gear, blah, blah, when we're ultra running, but this format obviously is different. So for you, like, what were the mandatory things? I mean, I think you're running Tarkines? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
shoot.
Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah. So what's your gear look like? What's your thinking with your gear look like? What worked really well for you this time round?
Yeah, so the Tarkine shoes, yeah, they're just great for, you know, they're the sort of shoe I can just run in all day, which is just absolutely perfect for the backyard. You know, you don't need to run really fast in these events. There's a lot of walking, so it's just about finding that shoe that's comfortable and, you know, that you're happy to wear for an extended duration. And I'll take a few different pairs as well. So I actually had 4 pairs, so 2 of the Tarkine trail ones and 2 of the road ones, and it was just about alternating those. This event definitely needed a lot of cold weather gear. It got down to like -2 at night. So yeah, buffs, gloves, jackets, track pants. Yeah, I was using a U-Glow downlined jacket, it's really quite a unique type of running jacket. And I was a bit sort of, you know, when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that's odd to have as a running jacket because it's got the down lining and stuff in it. But it actually works really well at keeping my core nice and warm. But at the same time, like, I wasn't overheating in it like I would if I had a traditional down jacket on. Yeah, just OC clothing, I use their tops. Yeah, they're just super lightweight, super comfy. And I've got quite a few of them as well. So I'm always kind of changing my tops.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want to keep the same gear on all the time. And with these backyards, because you've got that, you know, it might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15-minute break. Yeah, then you've got that time to sort of sit down and change things about each lap. So it might be changing your top, it might be changing your shoes. Yeah, things like that. So another thing I do with my shoes is I have elastic laces in them, or with the road, the Goshawks, the elastic laces didn't quite work, so I use it like a toggle system. just basically the idea is I don't want to have to untie and tie my laces. So I can get to the end of a lap and I can take my shoes off, even if I'm not changing them. It's just letting those feet breathe and, not being constrained by the shoe. And it's just good to give them that break for that 15 minutes. And then if you do need to change your shoes. Sorry?
You doing a sock change at the same time and kind of think about that as well?
I do a sock change. So for this event, I was having a shower in the morning. It was around, I think, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And then in the afternoon, at the end of doing the day lap, so sort of just after sunset, I was just having a foot bath, so just washing my feet. So it was those 3 points. They were the only points where I'd remove my socks and actually look after, like, do my foot care routine. So for that, it's just basically cleaning all the dirt off. I use squirrel's nut butter, so the Happy Toes one. That's really good for just preventing blisters, and also just checking the feet for any hot spots and things like that. So I do pretty well in these events, and I don't often get blisters. So that comes down to my shoe choice, my sock choice. So the socks I use Stygians, and the squirrel's nut butter. But occasionally I do get blisters there, and in that case I use a product called Duoderm, which I can put on a blister that's starting to form, and then 12 hours later when I go to do my foot care routine again, check that blister and it might have be back to normal, and it hasn't gotten anywhere. So the Duoderm actually helps heal it as well as protect it. So that's a really good product.
Great product when you're only running 102 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, sick. So how many pairs of shoes did you use? You say 4?
Yeah, so I had 4 that I rotated through. I actually took another 2 pairs as well. And they were just sort of just in case the Tarkine stopped working for me for whatever reason. I just like to have a backup, but they were in my bag at the start of the event, and they pretty much stayed there the whole time. They didn't even get a look at.
Did you switch between like road and trail shoes, or did you?
Yeah, so that there was a trail course in the day and a road course at night. So I was using the trail shoes in the day, and the road shoes at night. But towards the end of it, I just found it more comfortable to wear the road shoes, even on the trail course. And because my feet are kind of swollen a bit as well, and I had the elastic laces in the trail shoes, it was kind of putting a bit too much pressure on the foot. Whereas with the road shoes, it was just really easy to loosen those laces. And the way that the Goshawks are designed is you can not have any laces in them at all. And because the tongue of the shoe is kind of all part of the shoe. It's not like a loose tongue. So you can take the laces out completely and you still be able to run in fine. So just by being able to like completely loosen those laces and run in those Goshawks, that worked really well.
I do the same thing with the Goshawks. They're great like that. Really, it makes a difference when you can, your shoe doesn't have to be super tight and it's still going to work too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Look, I think we're going to wrap it up in the next couple of minutes, but I think I could probably grill you on more detail for a few hours, which I'm sure you're going to do over the next few conversations like this that you inevitably going to have. Thank you so much for turning up and for doing this with us. I really appreciate it. And it's just obviously for Wild Places shares the passion that you do for running and for just being outside and enjoying nature. So it's nice to have you kind of just share those tips to keep us out there longer.
Yeah.
Look, thank you so much. Look, For Wild Places is a membership organisation. We've got some really amazing partners, including Tarkines, that give us some really good offers through the year end as membership sign up. So if anyone is interested in that, I'd really push you to go and check it out. I have been a paid member of the For Wild Places staff on occasion, and I'm still paid for membership because the discounts are so good that it actually works for me. So if you can check that one out, it's a pretty good deal. Thank you so much, Phil. We really appreciate your time, and I know that you're going to be super busy with this stuff. So thank you for giving us a whole hour, and I hope we see you smash it in America, because wouldn't that be cool taking it in the States as well, just on home soil?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Cool. No dramas. Thank you.